You may be carrying a fragment of another humanity inside you. This isn't metaphor or myth. It's genetics. Part of your body, your skin, and even the way your mind reacts to the world may come from a human being who lived more than 40,000 years ago. The Neanderthal did not vanish into extinction the way we once believed. Instead, it merged into us. And modern science is only now beginning to understand how deep that inheritance really goes. For decades, the dominant idea was simple. Neanderthals failed, Homo sapiens succeeded, and one replaced the other. A clean, evolutionary victory. But genetics shattered that story. When researchers began sequencing ancient DNA, an unexpected truth emerged. Every human population outside Africa carries traces of Neanderthal DNA, usually between 1% and 4%. These are not symbolic remnants. They are functional pieces of genetic code that still influence how our bodies work, how we respond to stress, how we feel pain, and how we experience the world. This discovery changed everything. It revealed that the meeting between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals was not only violent or competitive, it was also intimate. They shared landscapes, they shared survival strategies, and at some point, they shared families. What survived was not one species alone, but a fusion, a biological and behavioral inheritance that still lives inside modern humans. The story begins around 60,000 years ago, during the Ice Age. Homo sapiens began leaving Africa and moving north into unfamiliar territory. The climate was harsher, the winters longer, the risks constant. Europe was not empty land. It was already home to the Neanderthals, a human species shaped by cold, scarcity, and endurance. Their bodies were compact and powerful, built to conserve heat. Their bones were thick, their muscles dense, their faces marked by deep-set eyes and broad noses adapted for freezing air. Homo sapiens arrived different, not stronger, not larger, but more flexible. Their advantage wasn't brute force, it was adaptability. They used lighter tools, developed complex language, and relied on cooperation and planning. When these two human worlds collided, they did not immediately destroy each other. At first, they likely observed from a distance. Two forms of humanity, equally conscious, equally aware, shaped by radically different environments. Both feared the dark. Both relied on fire. Both hunted, protected their young, and buried their dead. The differences were real, but the similarities were undeniable. Over time, competition turned into coexistence, and coexistence led to connection. Before we dive in, drop your location in the comments and subscribe to Primal Roots if you're enjoying the journey. Genetic evidence confirms what archaeology only hinted at for decades. Interbreeding was not rare. It was widespread enough to leave a permanent mark on our species. That means Neanderthals were not just rivals. They were ancestors, and what they passed on did more than shape our appearance. It shaped our survival. Many Neanderthal genes are linked to the immune system. They helped early modern humans survive unfamiliar pathogens in colder climates. Others influenced skin pigmentation, hair texture, and the body's ability to regulate temperature. Traits like lighter skin, stronger reactions to cold, and even susceptibility to certain skin conditions may trace back to this ancient lineage. The Ice Age left fingerprints on your DNA. But the most intriguing legacy lies in the brain. Studies suggest that some Neanderthal genetic variants affect mood, sleep patterns, sensory sensitivity, and emotional intensity. People who carry higher concentrations of these genes often experience lighter sleep, heightened awareness of their surroundings, and stronger emotional responses. This isn't coincidence. It reflects a mind shaped by constant danger, one that needed to wake quickly, react fast, and never fully relax. It's as if part of the human brain still remembers the cave, still listens for footsteps in the dark, still reacts before logic has time to speak. This doesn't mean Neanderthals were primitive or less intelligent. On the contrary, evidence shows they cared for injured members of their groups, buried their dead, used complex tools, and possibly engaged in symbolic behavior. Their intelligence was different, not inferior, tuned for survival in extreme environments rather than long-term expansion. Modern humans inherited that instinctive intelligence. The quick emotional reaction, the gut feeling, the sudden fear without a clear cause. These responses helped our ancestors survive predators, storms, starvation, and conflict. Today, they surface as anxiety, intuition, or heightened sensitivity, echoes of a world where hesitation could mean death. Anthropology and evolutionary genetics now suggest that some aspects of personality may also be influenced by this ancient inheritance. Traits related to curiosity, risk-taking, social bonding, and even introversion show correlations with Neanderthal gene variants. The human mind is not purely modern. It is layered, built from multiple human pasts stacked on top of each other. Homo sapiens did not simply replace Neanderthals, it absorbed them. Their strength, resilience, and instincts became part of the modern human blueprint. What survived was not a species, but a legacy. That legacy challenges the idea that evolution is a straight line of progress. Human history is not a clean ascent. It is a mosaic of encounters, losses, adaptations, and shared survival. The word human does not describe a single origin. It describes a convergence. Every breath you take carries ancient history. Every emotional reaction has roots deeper than memory. The past is not buried beneath us. It lives inside us, active and influential. The Neanderthals are gone as a people. But they never truly disappeared. They exist in the way we feel cold, in how we sense danger, in the emotions we don't fully understand. They exist in the blood that remembers. And that memory still shapes who we are becoming. The encounter between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals did not happen in a single moment, nor in a single place. It unfolded slowly, across thousands of years, shaped by climate shifts, shrinking ecosystems, and relentless pressure to survive. The Ice Age was not a backdrop. It was the dominant force. Cold was constant. Resources were unstable. Every movement across the landscape carried risk. Neanderthals had already adapted to this world long before modern humans arrived. Their bodies reflected that reality. Compact frames reduced heat loss. Broad chests supported powerful lungs. Shorter limbs conserved energy. Every anatomical detail was a response to cold, scarcity, and physical confrontation with a hostile environment. This was not accidental evolution. It was survival carved into bone. Homo sapiens entered this environment carrying a different evolutionary strategy. Less physically robust, but more behaviorally flexible. Instead of relying primarily on strength and endurance, sapiens depended on cooperation, long-distance planning, and rapid innovation. Clothing became layered, shelters became structured, tools became specialized. Language expanded beyond immediate coordination into abstraction, memory, and symbolic meaning. When these two human lineages crossed paths, neither encountered a stranger in the biological sense. They recognized each other as human. The differences were obvious, but familiarity was unavoidable. Shared behaviors emerged almost immediately: use of fire, coordinated hunting, care for offspring, and ritualized treatment of the dead. These were not isolated coincidences. They reflected parallel cognitive capacities shaped by similar pressures. Territories overlapped, hunting grounds merged. Competition followed, but so did cooperation. Archaeological layers reveal periods where both species occupied the same regions for thousands of years. This coexistence contradicts the older narrative of rapid replacement. It suggests prolonged interaction, negotiation, and adaptation on both sides. Genetic evidence confirms that these interactions were not limited to conflict. Interbreeding occurred repeatedly across multiple regions. This was not an anomaly. It was a biological exchange substantial enough to permanently alter the genetic makeup of modern humans. The result was not a blending into sameness, but a selective integration of traits that proved useful in extreme conditions. Neanderthal DNA fragments that persist today are not random. Many are associated with immune response, inflammation control, and resistance to pathogens common in Ice Age Eurasia. Early Homo sapiens entering these regions faced unfamiliar diseases and environmental stresses. Neanderthal genes provided a survival advantage, improving the body's ability to cope with cold, infection, and physical strain. Skin physiology was also affected. Variants influencing keratin production altered skin thickness and hair structure, improving insulation and protection. Pigmentation changes helped regulate vitamin D synthesis under reduced sunlight. These adaptations were not cosmetic. They were critical for survival in northern latitudes. The fusion extended beyond physiology into perception and behavior. Certain Neanderthal gene variants are linked to heightened sensory awareness, faster threat detection, and increased emotional reactivity. In a world where predators, starvation, and exposure were constant threats, these traits increased survival odds. Vigilance was not anxiety. Sensitivity was not weakness. They were functional responses to an unforgiving environment. However, adaptation carries trade-offs. Traits that once ensured survival can become burdens in stable environments. Heightened alertness may manifest as stress. Emotional intensity may appear as instability. The modern world interprets these responses differently, but their origin lies in a time when constant readiness meant the difference between life and death. Archaeological evidence reveals that Neanderthals were not cognitively limited. They produced complex tools, controlled fire skillfully, processed hides, and constructed shelters. They cared for injured individuals who survived long after trauma, indicating social bonds and long-term cooperation. Burial sites suggest symbolic behavior and emotional attachment to the dead. Homo sapiens expanded symbolic systems further. Cave art, personal ornaments, and ritual practices became more frequent and elaborate. Symbols allowed knowledge to be transmitted across generations, strengthening group identity and coordination. This cognitive shift provided a powerful advantage as populations grew and spread. As climates fluctuated and resources became unpredictable, flexibility favored expansion. Homo sapiens groups multiplied and dispersed rapidly. Neanderthal populations, already smaller and more fragmented, struggled to recover from environmental stress and demographic pressure. This imbalance gradually shifted dominance. Yet, extinction was not a clean disappearance. Genetic traces show that Neanderthals did not simply vanish, they were absorbed. Their biological legacy persisted even as their distinct populations declined. The modern human genome became a record of that convergence, preserving traits that proved useful while discarding others. This process reshaped what it meant to be human. The modern species did not emerge from isolation, but from integration. Survival was not achieved by erasing the other, but by incorporating strengths across lineages. Human evolution was not a solitary ascent. It was a network of encounters, exchanges, and adaptations. The Ice Age forced cooperation at every level. Groups that shared knowledge, resources, and protection endured longer. Genetic exchange became another form of cooperation, extending survival beyond cultural boundaries. Biology followed behavior. The consequences of this convergence persist today. The immune system still reacts using inherited strategies refined tens of thousands of years ago. The nervous system still carries patterns shaped by ancient threats. Emotional responses often emerge faster than conscious reasoning, reflecting neural pathways optimized for rapid decision-making. These patterns do not imply regression. They reveal continuity. Modern humans are not disconnected from prehistory. They are its continuation. The boundaries between past and present blur at the cellular level, where ancient DNA still influences daily experience. The disappearance of Neanderthals was not the end of their story. It marked a transformation. Their legacy survived not in monuments or written language, but in biology, in resilience, in instinct, in the silent mechanisms that operate beneath conscious thought. Human dominance did not arise solely from superiority. It emerged from synthesis. The ability to absorb, adapt, and reorganize information, biological and cultural, defined success. The modern human is not a replacement, but a composite. The convergence between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals reshaped evolution itself. It demonstrated that survival favored integration over isolation. The human story is not about purity, but about connection. Every modern population outside Africa carries evidence of that truth encoded in DNA. The Ice Age eventually receded, but its influence did not. The environments that shaped early humans left permanent marks, preserved within physiology and behavior. The cold retreated, but the adaptations remained. This legacy does not belong to one region or culture. It is shared across continents, carried by billions of people who unknowingly host fragments of an ancient humanity. The past is not distant. It operates quietly, continuously, shaping reactions, perceptions, and resilience. The convergence was invisible at the time. No boundaries were drawn, no names were recorded. Yet its impact defines what humanity became. The modern world is built upon this silent inheritance, a fusion forged under ice, pressure, and survival. And within that fusion, the story of human evolution continues, not as a linear path forward, but as a layered structure where ancient and modern coexist within the same body, the same mind, and the same species. Human evolution did not conclude with the disappearance of the Neanderthals. It continued through inheritance. What survived was not a population, but a biological and behavioral imprint that became embedded within modern humans. The traits shaped by extreme climates, chronic danger, and environmental instability did not dissolve when conditions improved. They persisted, carried forward through generations, integrated into the physiology and psychology of Homo sapiens. The modern human nervous system still reflects a world that no longer exists. Neural pathways optimized for rapid threat detection remain active, triggering responses before conscious reasoning can intervene. This is not a flaw of evolution. It is evidence of continuity. For tens of thousands of years, survival depended on speed rather than reflection. The ability to react instantly to ambiguous stimuli reduced risk in environments where hesitation was fatal. Genetic studies show that Neanderthal-derived variants influence the regulation of stress hormones, emotional reactivity, and sleep cycles. Light sleep increased vigilance. Heightened emotional response reinforced memory formation, linked to danger and reward. These mechanisms enhanced survival in unpredictable environments, where adaptation required constant awareness rather than comfort. In stable modern societies, these same traits can appear maladaptive. Persistent alertness may manifest as anxiety. Emotional sensitivity may be interpreted as instability. Yet these responses are not errors. They are adaptations operating outside their original context. The body does not evolve for future comfort. It evolves for immediate survival. The immune system provides another example of this enduring legacy. Neanderthal genes contributed to immune responses that were effective against ancient pathogens common in Ice Age Eurasia. These genetic adaptations improved early survival, but also increased susceptibility to autoimmune conditions in modern environments. Evolution does not optimize for health in all contexts. It prioritizes survival at the moment of selection. Physiology still reflects ancient constraints. Variants affecting skin structure, fat distribution, and temperature regulation persist across populations. These traits improved endurance in cold climates, where maintaining body heat was essential. Even today, differences in cold tolerance, pain perception, and metabolic response show traces of this ancient adaptation. The persistence of instinct extends beyond biology into behavior. Social bonding, territorial awareness, and group loyalty remain deeply rooted in human psychology. Neanderthal groups were small and interdependent. Survival required cooperation, shared resources, and protection of vulnerable members. Archaeological evidence confirms long-term care for injured individuals, indicating empathy and social responsibility long before complex civilization emerged. Modern humans inherited these social instincts and expanded them through symbolic communication. Language, art, and ritual transformed instinct into culture. Shared meaning strengthened cooperation beyond immediate kinship, allowing larger groups to function cohesively. This shift did not replace instinct, it organized it. The symbolic mind did not erase the primitive one, it layered over it. Beneath abstract reasoning, the brain continues to process the world using ancient heuristics shaped by survival. Fear, attachment, and aggression arise from systems far older than written language or social institutions. This layered cognition explains contradictions within modern behavior. Humans create laws yet respond emotionally. They build complex societies yet react instinctively to perceived threats. These patterns are not contradictions. They are evolutionary artifacts. Neanderthal influence also extends into sensory processing. Genetic variants linked to heightened perception improve detection of subtle environmental changes. Increased sensitivity to sound, movement, and facial expression enhanced group coordination and threat awareness. In modern environments, these traits may contribute to sensory overload, but their origin lies in a time when awareness meant survival. The disappearance of Neanderthal populations did not result from cognitive inferiority. It was shaped by demographic vulnerability. Smaller population sizes, reduced genetic diversity, and environmental instability limited recovery from stress. Homo sapiens, with larger and more connected populations, adapted faster to rapid changes. Expansion favored flexibility rather than specialization. Yet specialization left a permanent imprint. The modern human genome retains fragments of a species that evolved under different pressures. These fragments influence behavior in subtle but measurable ways. They affect risk tolerance, emotional regulation, and social interaction patterns. Evolution does not erase useful information. It stores it. Genetic inheritance functions as memory, preserving solutions that once worked. The modern human body is an archive of past environments, each layer representing a response to conditions no longer present. This perspective challenges linear views of progress. Human evolution is not a story of replacement, but of accumulation. Each stage adds complexity without fully removing what came before. The past remains active, shaping perception, decision-making, and resilience. The survival of Neanderthal traits also reframes identity. Humanity is not defined by a single origin or a pure lineage. It is defined by convergence. The modern species emerged through contact, exchange, and integration. Biological boundaries were permeable, not fixed. This convergence explains the diversity of modern human experience. Variation in emotional response, perception, and physiology reflects different balances of inherited traits. No single profile defines humanity. Variation is the result of layered ancestry responding to layered environments. The Ice Age ended, but its influence persists within cellular processes and neural circuits. Temperature no longer dictates survival, yet bodies continue to respond as if it might. Danger is abstract, but the brain reacts as though it were immediate. This mismatch defines much of modern human stress. Understanding this legacy provides clarity rather than limitation. It reveals that many modern struggles are not individual failures, but evolutionary echoes. Responses that once ensured survival now operate within environments they were never designed for. The Neanderthals left no written language, no cities, no empires. What they left was more enduring. They left genetic strategies refined by extreme conditions. They left behavioral patterns shaped by cooperation and care. They left a biological inheritance woven into modern humanity. Every modern human outside Africa carries evidence of this ancient connection. It exists not as memory, but as function. It influences immunity, emotion, perception, and instinct. The past is not symbolic, it is operational. Humanity did not rise by abandoning its predecessors. It rose by absorbing them. Strength came not from elimination, but from integration. Evolution favored those who could combine endurance with flexibility, instinct with imagination. The modern human stands at the intersection of multiple human histories. Each contributes to what the species has become. The Neanderthal contribution is not a footnote, it is structural. The instinct that once guided survival through ice and scarcity still operates beneath conscious thought. It shapes reactions to uncertainty, drives social bonding, and influences emotional depth. Civilization did not eliminate it. It concealed it beneath layers of abstraction. Human evolution remains unfinished. The same mechanisms that absorbed Neanderthal traits continue to operate. Adaptation persists through interaction with changing environments, technologies, and social structures. The future will add new layers, but the past will remain embedded within them. The legacy of the Neanderthals is not extinction. It is continuity. Their biology persists within modern humans, not as relic, but as function. Their survival strategy did not end. It transformed. Humanity is not separated from its ancient past. It is built upon it. The body remembers. The mind reacts. The instinct endures. And within that endurance lies the true story of what it means to be human. Subscribe and stay curious. Human history didn't disappear. It lives inside us. Explore the science, the evidence, and the origins of who we are.